My name is Peter Jones. I'm a senior lecturer in social work and human services, which is part of the College of Arts, Society and Education here at James Cook. One of the subjects that I teach is called WS 1006, Self in Professional Helping. So it's a level 1 core subject in the Bachelor of Social Work degree. I find it a really interesting subject because we have such a diverse student cohort. We have a lot of mature age students in social work. So we've got a lot of people who are returning to study after having a long break away. They may have been working or raising families. But we also have a smaller number of students who might be coming straight from school. Lots of people who are the first in their family to come to university and study. Lots of people moving to Townsville from remote or rural areas, and indeed the subject is also taught as an external unit, so people can be studying at a distance from the university as well. So some of the challenges that are involved in teaching in a subject like WS 1006 are that for lots of the students that are studying, it's their very first experience of university study. And we know that that can be quite an overwhelming kind of experience. Everything's new, they're not really clear about what the expectations are. They may know very few of the people that are sitting around them in the classroom. And so there's a significant hurdle to get over there in terms of helping the students to feel comfortable, to actually begin to engage in the subject material, but also to make those connections with their peers and with the staff in the subject. So that's a significant challenge for us. In this subject, we've also got the challenge of teaching a group of students who are off campus. So people that are studying the subject, but studying it in an external mode. Now, the question of how we engage them is even more difficult because obviously we're not sitting in a classroom with them, we're not having those face-to-face conversations. And so trying to come up with some strategies that allow those students to feel as if they belong in the subject, as if they belong to the university, is an important challenge for us. So in the classroom, I try and use a variety of strategies to help students to feel comfortable, but also to begin challenging them, to ask them to really get involved in the subject. That includes doing things like using music and visual arts as part of what I teach in the subject, but also looking for ways in which we can encourage people to become more participatory, more active in their learning. One of the strategies that I'm very fond of, because it just seems to work so nicely, is a strategy that I just call using stickies. And this involves recognizing that for lots of students, when they're first beginning the subject, the idea that they would speak up in a classroom full of 70 other people is quite daunting. And so if you simply ask a question to the group, you're likely to get nobody putting their hand up to answer. So I use Postit Notes. I distribute Postit Notes to everybody in the classroom. And when I've got a question that I'd like some engagement from the class with, I actually ask them to write down the answer to that question on their Post-it note, and then to swap that Post-it note with another student, and then to keep on swapping the Post-it notes until we can be absolutely certain that everybody in the room's got one of these Post-it notes, but nobody has their own. I'll then choose a section of the classroom and ask people in that row to read what's on their Post-it notes. And people are quite happy to read them out loud because they don't have to own them. The words don't belong to them. But what we get is a really nice snapshot of what people are thinking and feeling in the classroom. What I've found is that by using a strategy like that for a few weeks, gradually people feel much more comfortable. They come to recognize that being able to speak up in class isn't going to be a terrible experience. Nobody's going to jump on them or laugh at them. That people's opinions in this classroom are really valued and are really actually important to everybody's learning. It can be quite difficult as an educator to know whether the things that you're doing in the classroom or indeed online for external students are actually working or not. So in my subjects, I like to use several different ways of trying to collect feedback from students about that. So in tutorial classes, for example, we will regularly have a kind of a 2-minute flash feedback session. at the end of a tutorial class. One of the ways that I like to do that is getting students to write down a piece of feedback. So the question could be as simple as, how do you think things are going so far? Or can you name one positive thing in this subject so far and something you'd like to change? I get everybody to write those down on a piece of paper, scrunch up the paper, throw it into the middle of the classroom, and then somebody will go and pick one up and we'll read those out loud. So it's a very immediate form of feedback, and often that really helps me to fine-tune things on a weekly or fortnightly basis. And of course, we've got the more formal university feedback mechanisms. I'm very committed to using those and to ensuring that I close the feedback loop. So students in my subject are able to look at the feedback that's been provided by students in the previous year, and also able to listen to me talk about how I've changed things in the subject as a result of using that feedback. So for students that are studying externally, trying to get some active learning and some engagement happening is much more challenging, I think. In one respect, it's easy for a student who's studying externally to take a quite passive role in their learning. They've just got things that they need to read each week. So I've tried to use a number of different strategies to connect with those students in the first instance and to get them to think about the way that they might best learn by doing things. So the starting point for me there is all about communication. So how do I actually reach out across the distance and communicate effectively with those students? So I use a number of different mechanisms for that. Obviously, email is one of those, but I also use short videos made using software like Adobe Voice or PowerTunes. I post weekly short vodcasts on the Learn JCU site so that students can actually see who their lecturer is and listen to me speaking to them. But we also use more active strategies like getting students to do some weekly online quizzes that involve them not just reading the material, but then being able to reframe and reuse that material in a way that reflects their understanding of it. So all of those strategies can be quite useful. One of the communication strategies that I've used that I really enjoy doing and which students have given me great feedback about is that I make a weekly comic strip which attempts to give a sort of a summary of what the topic was that we looked at that week, but it does so in a very easily digestible and even amusing kind of form. So they're posted out to students each week and also put on the Learn JCU site so that they can have a look at them. They often serve as a sort of a starting point, a conversation starter, I guess, and I usually get, if I send them out to students, I usually get feedback from them, either questions or comments or observations about that material. So one of the ways that I know the cartoon is an engaging strategy is that if I forget to send it one week or I'm even a little bit late, I start to get emails saying, hey, where's the cartoon? How come we haven't got the cartoon this week? So students are actually looking out for that as this kind of interesting punctuation mark in their week of study.